Once upon a time, a king lived in a distant country. And he had 11 sons and one daughter, Eliza. The royal children lived well and carefree until their stepmother appeared in their lives. No one knew that the new queen was an evil witch. She hated the king's children, always complained about them, and dreamed of expelling them from the castle. The evil queen slandered poor children so much that soon the king himself began to believe her words. First, he sent his daughter away to be raised in a nearby village. There she was destined to live up to 15 years. The evil queen wanted to send the boys away too, but they were still too young. Therefore, the father left them in the castle. And then one day an evil sorceress made her way into the children's room and put a spell on the sons of the king. She turned them into 11 wild swans and then opened the window. And the boys who became birds flew out of the castle. Years passed, and Eliza turned 15. On this day, she returned to the palace. While waiting for the king's arrival, the girl met her stepmother, who was angry that the princess would now live in the palace. And Eliza, tired from the road, did not notice how she fell asleep. Having chosen the right moment, the queen entered the room and put a spell on the girl. Suddenly, the princess's hair became dirty and unkempt, and her face changed and darkened. At this time, the king returned to the castle. He missed his daughter and dreamed of meeting her. Entering the room, the king saw that the girl on the princess's bed was not at all like his daughter. He got angry and ordered to expel the stranger from the castle. Eliza had to spend the night in the forest. In the morning she washed in the pond, the spell was asleep, and the girl again became a beauty. Immediately she met a kind old woman. She told the princess that every evening she sees 11 swans in golden crowns by the river. Then Eliza went to the water. At sunset, swans flew there, which at that very moment turned into her brothers. They immediately recognized Princess Eliza and hugged her. The brothers told the girl that the evil stepmother had bewitched them. And now every morning they turn into swans, and at night they return to their true appearance. In the morning, the brothers turned into swans again and took Eliza with them, placing the girl in a basket of willow bark. The princess was happy to fly through the sky with her brothers. It seemed to her that it was a beautiful dream, and soon she fell asleep for real. In a dream, the fairy of the castle appeared to her, who told how you can save the brothers. Eliza had to pick some nettles and weave 11 shirts for the brothers, but not say anything, otherwise the brothers would disappear forever. The next morning, the girl began to collect nettles. The grass burned her hands, but Eliza continued to pluck it. Suddenly the girl was noticed by a handsome prince hunting nearby. He was fascinated by the beauty of the princess and went up to her to say hello.
Hello!
But Eliza remembered what the fairy said and therefore did not say a word. The prince was struck by the silence of the forest beauty, so he soon took her as his wife and took her to his castle. While spending days in the palace, the princess continued to secretly weave nettle shirts. But one day the prince's advisor saw Eliza doing this. He spread rumors that the princess was a magician at night and should have been arrested. Over time, the prince also believed that his wife was a witch. Then he ordered his soldiers to imprison the girl in prison. However, even in prison, the young princess continued to weave shirts. Finally the day came when Eliza finished sewing the last shirt. At that moment, the dungeon door opened and the princess was taken to trial. They decided to sentence the poor girl to death. And at that moment, when the judge read out the verdict, 11 swans descended from heaven. Eliza pulled shirts from under her skirt and threw them over the birds. Her brothers immediately became human. But the princess did not have enough nettles for the sleeves for the last shirt, so the younger brother had swan wings instead of arms. Then the brothers told their story. And the prince, who deeply believed in his wife's innocence, asked Eliza for forgiveness. The princess immediately forgave her husband. Finally, the brothers were free and Eliza was happy. Together they returned to the castle. The father recognized his children and for many years could not forgive himself for allowing his stepmother to deceive him. And the evil sorceress herself turned into a crow and flew away, never to return to the castle.
In the deepest part of the sea stood the palace of the Sea King. And he had 6 daughters. They played in the garden all day long. Unlike the other princesses, the youngest was quiet and brooding. And her name was the Little Mermaid. Most of all, she loved listening to stories about the world of people. Traditionally, a mermaid could only rise to the surface for the first time in her 16th birthday. And now it's time to see the land and the youngest princess. She surfaced close to the ship, singing and music coming from the deck. This was the first time the princess saw the ship. In the cabin of the ship, the Little Mermaid noticed a handsome prince. For a long time she could not take her eyes off him.
Oh no!
Suddenly, a violent storm began at sea. The prince's ship hit a rock and shattered into pieces. In complete darkness, lightning flashed, and the Little Mermaid saw the prince fall into the sea. She rescued him by bringing him ashore. Soon the prince was found by a girl passing by. When he woke up, he smiled at her and thanked her for saving her. The Little Mermaid became sad that the prince did not even know about her existence. She dived into the water and swam away. From her father's stories about people, the Little Mermaid knew that they considered the fishtail of mermaids to be ugly. Therefore, in order to please a person, one had to acquire 2 legs. The next day, the Little Mermaid went to the sea witch. The sorceress agreed to make a potion for her that would turn the fishtail into a pair of slender legs. The princess's gait would be graceful, but every step she took would bring unbearable pain. And if the prince married another, the Little Mermaid would turn into sea foam. In return, the witch wished to take her wonderful voice from the girl. The princess was ready for anything to be close to the prince, and she agreed. Having sailed to the prince's palace at night, the Little Mermaid drank a magic drink. A sharp pain shot through her and she passed out. Waking up in the afternoon, the girl saw the prince in front of her, and lowering her eyes, found 2 legs instead of a fishtail. The prince tried to find out who she was and how she got here, but the Little Mermaid could not speak. Despite her airy gait and beautiful dancing, she felt terrible pain in her legs. The prince became more and more attached to the Little Mermaid, but still treated her like a cute little child. It never entered his head to make her his wife. Once the prince admitted that his heart is occupied by the one who saved him long ago on the shore, and they are going to get married. The Little Mermaid was very upset, but could not tell him the truth. When it was time for the wedding, the prince invited the Little Mermaid to go with the newlyweds on a honeymoon trip. A luxurious honeymoon tent is spread out on the deck of the ship. The Little Mermaid had one last evening left to be with the one for whom she left her home, gave her wonderful voice and endured endless torment every day. But he didn't even notice them. When silence fell on the ship, the Little Mermaid sat on the deck and waited for the first rays of the sun. Suddenly, near the ship, she noticed her sisters. They tearfully asked the witch to help save the princess from death. The sorceress gave them a sharp knife, with which the Little Mermaid was to pierce the heart of the prince. A drop of his blood would turn her legs into a tail, and she could return to the sea. The Little Mermaid looked into the tent, and saw there a sleeping couple in love. She did not find the strength to take the prince's life, and threw the dagger into the sea. With grief, the Little Mermaid threw herself into the water. But the kindness of the princess melted the heart of the wicked witch. The sorceress cancelled her spell, and the Little Mermaid again had a fishtail instead of human legs.